You're listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 96, Fancy Wild Thing. And coming to you from the freshly vaccinated suburbs of Chicago, I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from the suburbs of Providence, I'm your co-host, John Fairwage Matola.
Ah, you getting?
Why do you always take a sip when I tell him my nickname? You're like almost spit it out.
I got a second to wet my whistle. So are you getting paid a fair wage?
Oh well, that's this is another oddly enough another nickname that I think I coined myself at work, because I am in charge of pay increases in certain cases. And so somebody was talking to me about, I think this person, deserves this at their next pay increase. And I'm like, hey, you know me, they call me John Fairwage Matola. I thought that's my next nickname on the show.
Well, when you're the one that came up with that nickname, that doesn't mean it's, if your workers came up with that nickname, then maybe it would be accurate.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody agreed. I think they looked at me and they're like, not so Fairwage.
Yeah, like John Fairwage. They're like, yeah, that's something like what we were thinking of to call you.
It's more accurately John Pay Increase Matola.
John, some sort of pay. They call you John 5 cents Matola.
Well, they're still calling me Three Pepper over there.
Oh, Three
from
Pepper
a couple
stuck,
of episodes ago.
It's stuck.
Yeah, well, I mean, three pepper was in reference to, I said they said that I was spicy, but I didn't clarify when I said that it was my attitude was spicy because I was acting whole out of sorts. I've been known to get spicy and opinionated and all that kind of stuff. So they're like, oh, he's at so now they're like, oh, look out, he's at 3 pepper level today. If I'm getting particularly agitated. So yeah, my reputation precedes me.
I think 3 peppers is your baseline. You can bring it up to 5 easily. It's like rating when we rate songs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, actually we should do that now. It's just like 4 peppers.
4 peppers.
2.5 peppers. Well, maybe we'll do that if it's ever appropriate. So
yeah, exactly. So speaking of
maybe a salsa, the Deep Purple salsa album,
salsa. They have some pretty spicy songs, but we're not talking about Deep Purple today. We're talking about a band that is tangentially related to Deep Purple. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, you brought up before the show, this is probably only the second time ever that we've done a album that basically has either nobody in it that was actually in Deep Purple, and also no, because we've done like covers and stuff, so no Deep Purple songs and no members of Deep Purple actually in this band. But as we'll get into, so I have something on my eyebrow. You will like the way you're scratching your eyebrow looked like I had something on my eyebrow.
No, I'd just be like Nate.
I don't want any of our 100
yeah,
YouTube
so if
viewers to think I look like a fool. But yeah,
so basically, if you are not interested in what did you call it? Tangential. Oh boy. Tangential. Yeah, if you're not interested in that, then you might want to skip this episode.
Yeah. But it's definitely got some connections to Deep Purple, and we're gonna see a bunch of these are all people that we've seen on various episodes in the past with some of our projects, like Ian Gillan Band, a Butterfly Ball, and such. So yeah, if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Or if you just like our general nonsense, stay tuned. If you're like, I'm still mad that they haven't done the Deep Purple album in a while, then skip it. Go do something else with your time. Enjoy some time with your family and loved ones, and skip this week's episode. But I think it will be to your detriment, because this should be an interesting one. The heck with us, indeed.
Yeah, I think so.
But before we move on, if you do like what you hear and you don't want to skip by this, please, if you want to continue the show and continue to support the show, you can do it a few ways. One is leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Always appreciate that. Two is by donating either via Patreon or PayPal. You can donate as little as $1 a month. If you're receiving any sort of value for this show and you want to give us some value back so we can continue to pay the bills, buy new records, all that sort of happy stuff. Save up for the new computer fund because, as I've been talking about for a while, this computer's quite old. And one day I'm just afraid I'm going to go
Oh
to sit
boy.
down and record the show and be like, oh, guess what, John? We're not recording for a couple weeks until I can purchase
No
all the
show this
parts and
week.
rebuild the sound system here. But yes, to thank our supporters at the $20 Shades of Deep Pockets tier, we have Ryan M. At the $15 Highball Shooter tier, we have Alan Ain't Too Proud to Beg. At the $10 Someone Came tier, we have Steve Seaborg of NameOnAnything.com and AllTheWorld'sAStage.net. We have Jeff Bryce, Gerald Kelly, and heyo, we have a
Hi-oh.
new patron. That's Victor Campos. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Victor. Victor, I'm pretty sure I'm right. Campos or Campos? Campos. Victor Campos, we'll say. I'm going. My final answer is Victor Campos. What do you think, John?
I think that your permanent nickname should be Nate Shaky Pronunciation Beaudry.
No, as we'll get to in a little bit, I think my pronunciations have been pretty good. At the $6.66 tier, we
Yeah.
have Richard Fusey. The $5.99 nice price tier, we have Fielding Fowler. At the $5 money lender tier, Greg Sealby, John Convery, Arthur Smith, German Heindel, Adrian Hernandez, Kenny Wymore, Jesper Alman, and Oleksiy the Perfect Stranger Slipakov, who told me on first attempt that I got his name spot on. So there you go. Oleksiy will stand in my corner. At the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier, we
All
have
right.
Peter Gardot, Ian DeRosier, Mark Roback, Anton Glaving, Will Porter, and Andrew Meyer. And at the $1 made-up name tier, Els Murder, Spacey Noodles, The Detestable Leaky Mausoleum, Michael Vader, Stephen Somerville, The Concerto 1999 Fanatic, which I was listening to the Concerto 1999 today. Fantastic. Raf Calf, and of course, James North. Thank you to all of you for your generous support. James North has still not come in with a fake name, so.
Still think that's funny. I still think that's funny.
But
Come on, James, pick something.
Stephen Somerville too is going with the real name, but did add the Concerto 1999 Fanatic. So maybe James North can be like the.
Well, I mean, I like that. That's something. Yeah.
And it's interesting because like how many like Concerto 1999 fanatics are there? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously a lot of people love that concert and went to it and all that, but to be that obsessed with that particular piece of the band's history is really interesting. Like James North, I mean, you can't come in with James Machine Head North or something. Like everybody loves Machine Head. You're gonna have to do some deep digging, James North. Like what could he be, James North? What
I
would
don't
be
know.
like
I
a
think that flows pretty nice.
James Gemini Sweet North? Or like I said, maybe James North is not his real name. So jokes on us. We'd like to thank all of
I
our
don't
brothers
know.
at the Deep Dive Podcast Network, Sabbath Bloody Podcast, Skinner Reconsidered, T-Bones Prime Cups, In the Last of the Pods, In the Lap of the Pods, and the Magicians Podcast.
Shaky pronunciation.
Shaky, I'm not. Oh, the Magicians Podcast mug right there. We
There
won't
we
be able to see
go.
it. You have to make
There you
some
go,
noise.
Scott.
So
Oh, here's the mug, Scott.
there you go. Some YouTube. Yeah,
And
Scott,
everybody.
you can send us a check for that, Scott. If you sold as many
And
mugs as we have
and
plenty of mugs, by the way, if anyone wants one. Oh, he's double
I always
fisted.
have our mugs on hand.
Double fisted over here.
So speaking of the Magicians Podcast, you were recently a guest host, weren't you?
Yes, that's right. I was it was this week. Wow, this week was crazy with work and all the snow and everything. So, yes, I between snowstorms and getting vaccinated and then feeling really lousy the day after getting vaccinated and shoveling some more.
Oh,
I was also on the Magicians
well,
Podcast.
hmm. Well, congratulations, and I'm sorry, and congratulations again.
it was
In that
it was
order.
it was a lot of fun. We did the magician's birthday, the song "The Magician's Birthday," and which is a very long song. So we split
Mhm.
it into 3 episodes. So of course everyone was joking that because I was on, it had to be put into 3 different episodes because that's what we do here. So um, might not have been everyone. It might have been
You
just
butterfly
Ryan.
balled it, huh?
I butterfly balled but yeah, it was a ton of fun being
Yeah.
on the show and hanging out with Scott is always fun. So that was a blast. Um,
So
yes,
tell us a little bit about vaccination.
yeah, I went to I went on Walgreens and got my first and second dose booked and was able to go in there and yeah, I got the shot and the flu shot usually kind of hurts the next day. Well, this was kind of like
Yeah.
if Mike Tyson punched you in the shoulder, sort of like 5 times as bad as a flu shot. I was like I couldn't even move my arm, and then I just felt like
Really?
of course the next night I was working late at work, so I was just dragging so bad. I was just like, I just wanted, you just want to get back into bed and just curl up and under the sheets and go to sleep. That's all I could think about all day was going home and going to bed. But yeah, I went to bed the next day, felt fine. So
Now, was that because like the physical in the arm, like the Mike Tyson feeling, or did you like physically make you feel like
yeah,
tired or?
I just felt really tired, just like
Hmm.
I don't even know how you describe it. It felt like basically when you have the flu and you're so tired. Like I was
Yeah.
going at work and I was going up the steps and I made it about halfway up the steps at my normal speed and then I just realized, oh my god, I can't keep up this pace and and I was huffing and puffing going up the rest of the stairs. And yeah, I just was cold, not chills, but like very cold. Like just like all I could think about was being warm and in bed and not standing up. And unfortunately, I had to be
Hmm.
all the opposite of that all night at work, standing up on my
All
feet and
three,
everything.
yeah.
So, um, but yeah,
But
it
hey, at
was
least at least you got it, and you're feeling good, and that's good.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that it was pretty small price to pay. I just felt tired for a day. They say the second dose is much worse, so they actually recommend you take the next day off of work. If I had known how I felt, I would have
Oh,
done that
really?
this time, but I didn't have much time because I had booked it like 2 days in advance. So I just took whatever slot they had available.
Wow.
I had to drive way up into Chicago to get the shot. And then just God, it's probably the first time I've been to Chicago in like a year. Usually go a lot more often. Um, and yeah, but then the next shot I
The
have
Windy
is
City.
really close by. So yep.
That's
So
the Windy City, right?
is when it was very windy. The wind chill was about -35 that day. So
Well,
um,
let me tell you something before we move on, which has nothing to do with anything. Well, maybe the Windy City.
okay,
So there's this popcorn thing that they have at Whole Foods, and it's called the Windy City Mix. You must have seen it,
of course.
and it's got the and I think we talked about it before, maybe not on the show, but like I had discovered a bag of it, and it has the popcorn covered in cheddar, and then some of them covered in caramel.
Hmm.
And I feel like let me see, I think there were 8 servings in the bag,
Uh
and I
oh.
housed the whole bag.
Oh yeah.
It was so friggin' good.
Yep.
Oh, and I'm just like, if the Windy City is wrong, I don't want to be right. As I'm like shoving it in there. It's like I never thought that like cheddar cheese popcorn and like caramel popcorn mixed together would be any good, but I am a believer, my
Yeah,
friend.
it's a Chicago staple, and they usually do it with like the really bright neon orange cheddar
Yes.
popcorn and the caramel corn. And yeah, it's one of those things that I never really had much until I moved here. And there was one a couple years back. I was taking a week off of work, and for whatever reason, the last day I got out of work and I had a bag of that, and I was just like, I was the same thing. I had beer and I had that bag of popcorn. I got home from work late. The kids were already asleep, and I was just like, I'm celebrating the beginning of my week off of work with this beer and this bag of popcorn, and I ate way too much of that bag of popcorn, maybe the whole thing, and just was like, that was my way to
Yeah.
celebrate. Like I am officially off of work. Like this is it. I don't recommend
Well,
it
let
though.
me tell you, if the if the authentic is as good as the one that I got that they make here, then that's one of the first things that I'm getting when I come out to visit you.
Well, I got to look around, make sure nobody's looking, but I honestly like the one that you got better than the authentic one
Mm.
around here, because it's that kind of
Ooh.
Cheetos cheddar flavor in the one around here, which isn't
Mm.
bad, but the one that you're talking about is the one that I had, and it's more of like an actual cheddar cheese flavor, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic. And then they've got
Well,
the
yeah, it
Chicago
was.
style hot dog with the relish that's like the neon green relish. Like they put like it like it's you've never seen relish like this. It's crazy. So if you come visit me, we'll get Chicago style hot dogs. We'll get that that popcorn. We'll sit down here. We'll do an episode live from the studio with both of us. We could we could
Ooh.
we could read a deep. I still haven't opened that Deep Purple book behind me, so maybe we can open that and just do a reactions video to that. That would be a lot of
like
fun.
like the night before Christmas, I can be like sitting on a throne opening it. You'll be sitting on the floor like this, listening while I read passages. Just spitballing ideas.
Yeah, yeah. We'll flesh that out a little bit
Or
more.
actually, yeah, maybe we can involve your kids or something. They can sit around and go like this. Yeah, I'm sure they've never done that in their lives, right? Never
No, they'll
sat that still.
they'll get bored after 3 pages and be like, "Yeah, we're gonna be playing video games if you guys want to keep doing this nonsense."
Uh,
um,
All right. Well, anyway, sorry for the side track there, but I had to bring this to everybody's attention. That popcorn is goddamn delicious.
well, I don't know if you remember years ago. Well, not this past New Year's, but the New Year's before that, a couple years ago. Um,
Mhm.
Nick from Pot of Thunder gave me his recipe for the Chicago mix cookie. And it's basically like a cheddar, like a savory cheddar biscuit dough, and then a dulce de leche cookie dough. And then you roll them up like a pinwheel and bake them, and then
Okay.
cut them into coins and bake them. So he gave me that recipe, and I had enjoyed some on the show uh, around that time. And he makes them every year around Christmas, and also quite good. And he's from the general area, so
Nice.
maybe next time he's on, we can have him in the studio. How about that? Um, if he wants to
Yeah.
drive all the way up here. Um, so anyway, getting moving along, Jeff uh, Bryce emailed us about Deep Purple and the Doors, saying, interesting show, enjoyed today's show, interesting idea. Here's a bit of Purple Doors relationship. Episode 6 used to perform Spanish Caravan and Light My Fire
Hmm.
as evidence on the Radio 1 Club Session CD and the Cornflakes and Crazy Foam CD. Also, check them out. I have Cornflakes and Crazy Foam back there somewhere. Um, Plus this, on the CD, a classic rock salute to the Doors from 2014. Lynn Turner sings Riders on the Storm. Steve Morse plays guitar on Touch Me, and Ian Gillan sings on Light My Fire. Surprisingly, Glenn Hughes doesn't show up on this one, as
Hmm.
he seems to be on every other tribute album in the world.
That
Which
is
is very
accurate.
that is very true. Thank you, Jeff Bryce. Another great tidbit from Jeff. Really always appreciate his vast knowledge and amazing collection pictures that he shares with us. So really cool. Um, Thank you for sharing that. So yes, this week we are tackling fancy. So a few reasons why we're doing that. First is we were talking about what episode to do and what came in the mail. It was released last week, but boom, Fancy, the complete recordings, the box set from Cherry Red Records.
Hmm.
I should put a link in the show notes to this. I tweeted about it on Twitter the day it came out and all that sort of stuff. It came super fast, even though it was shipped from the UK. But it's a 3 CD set of their first album, Wild Thing, their second album, Something to Remember, and then something called Let's Go On Somewhere, which is a live performance of them. Performing in London in June of 1975. So I just had to have this album because I love Mo and Ray and all their work. And if you've been following the show at all, or if you don't know, Fancy is basically the backing band from Butterfly Ball. The Jesus Christ Superstar had the Grease Band backing them up for in Juicy Lucy and most of those guys. And for the Butterfly Ball, they had these three guys with the core rhythm section backing up that entire album. And so uh, I got really into all those guys and all the stuff that they did. And we talked to Ray Fenwick a while, maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago. We had him on the show, which was great. And yeah, this is really cool. So it's a really nicely put together box set, not that expensive. I think it was in pounds, but I think it only came up to like a little under $30 with shipping, which isn't too bad. But a really nice box set if you're interested in learning more. But basically, the whole idea of this band came together with Mike Hurst, who was the producer. And he said he always loved the song Wild Thing, but he didn't think that the Trogs version was sexy, which I think is like a really weird. He's like, that's not sufficiently sexy enough for me. So he's decided that he loved the Jimi Hendrix version, but he wanted to do it in a different way. And he said, would the song be sexier if it was sung by a woman? Probably, depending on the woman. And that's where it kind of came up with. So he calls up Ray Fenwick and he says, hey, let's work on this arrangement together, but we need a singer. And he says he doesn't remember who suggested it, but the singer that they got was Helen Kant, who was up. She had previously worked for Rod Stewart, but was known for being a Penthouse pet. So, so I guess they got the sexy part down as far as looks go, but what about the singing, right? Um, Penthouse Pet looks great on paper, but are you going to want to listen to a Penthouse Pet singing? So Ray brings in Mo Foster. They get to work on the song with Henry Spinetti on drums, Mike Hurst and Ray Fenwick on backing vocals. And Hurst wanted to be slow and funky, but have splashes of sex, as he says. Eventually, he Helen Kant couldn't sing. So it seems like this is where the plan starts kind of falling apart. It was a great idea. She looked the part. She looked great. Um, but she had trouble singing. So he tells her just to kind of breathe it all the way through. And he tells kind of this graphic story in here about how basically like saying like the whole band was all horny because of the way she was breathing the words to the song or whatever. I don't know, listening to it without looking at her, how that would affect, but she certainly is a very attractive woman. So that could have had something to do with it. Um, they recorded it as a single, and then they recorded an instrumental called Fancy as the B-side. And obviously they ended up adapting that as the name for the band. Um, they wanted to know how do we sell the single now that we have it? We got the single recorded. Well, when you have a Penthouse pet in the band, you just put her on the cover of the single. So that's what they did. That's her on the cover of the single, surrounded by two men visible and one in the two in the background. There's one kind of in the shadows and then one like way down here.
Oh,
Kind of
I just noticed him.
like, yeah, I honestly just noticed him for the first time now, and I've
Uh,
been looking at this single cover. Yeah, so there's like she's surrounded by four guys and she's topless, but it's from the back. And they tell a story, and there's a nice little booklet in here where they said the story of like all the guys in the photo shoot wanted to be all of a sudden had a lot of business going on like behind those guys, oh, we're just gonna check what's going on over here, which I guess she wasn't too thrilled about. um, so they put this on the album, on the single to sell it, which obviously seems like probably a pretty good marketing move. They put out the single in April of 1973. It didn't do much in the UK, but in the US, it became a surprise hit. It made it all the way to number 7 in the charts. And Mike Hurst says, by this time, and with the success in the USA, Helen had gotten herself a new manager, her boyfriend. That was 2 strikes against her. She had to go. So basically, she couldn't sing, and she decided her boyfriend was going to be her manager. We're going to get rid of her and get somebody else. So they auditioned a bunch of people. Um, they weren't crazy about anybody. Then they came across Annie Kavanagh, who had previously worked with Steely Dan, and she'd been in the Australian stage. She's Australian. She'd been on the Australian stage production Jesus Christ Superstar. Great voice. They decide, okay, now we got fancy. We're going to go ahead and make the full album. And that's kind of the background to how this album came about. They got, so on the first track you'll hear, which is Wild Thing, you'll hear their version of Wild Thing with the Playboy Penthouse Pet singing, and then they'll move on to the rest of the album, which was Annie Kavanagh, which is kind of an actual trained singer. So that's the lineup. You know Mo Foster from this show. If you don't, check him out. Les Banks on drums, goes on to play with Judas Priest, and all around great drummer. Interestingly, on guitar and vocals is credited Marlin. And it's actually a question I had for our interview with Ray Fenwick, but I canceled it at the last minute because I thought better of it. But when I looked it up, it said this was an alias used by Ray Fenwick when he was in Fancy. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't explain anything. So I reached out to Ray the other day and I was like, "Hey Ray, what was going on with Marlin? What was up with that?" So he says, "Hi Nate, good to hear from you. Answer to your question. Marlin came from a leather jacket I had made. It had a white leather logo script on the back reading Marlin, an homage to Brando. Why? Who knows?" So I guess he loved Marlon Brando. He had a jacket made that said Marlon on the back. He decided to call himself Marlon, but he
Hmm.
doesn't really have any. And then he decided, I'm going to be Marlon on this album after having been professionally been Ray Fenwick for a while. But funny, interesting story. So
Yeah.
would have been, I should have asked him on the interview because I wasn't expecting that.
But at least
Um,
you got the answer from him directly,
Yeah,
regardless. That's
exactly.
cool.
I figured why Google? I sometimes I forget that. Like I'm actually in contact with some of these people now.
Yeah.
And I'm like Googling, I'm like, Marlon, who's at first I was like, wait, was Ray Fenwick not on the first album? Was I wrong? Was it who's Marlon? And then when I looked it up, I found, oh, it's an alias, but why? Very interesting. Um, so he also did, but he said, but because we had this conversation, he said, it's interesting you bring up Marlon because as Marlon, he also did a single with Roger Glover called Let's Go to the Disco with a B-side Broken Man in 1974. They released it together as Roger Glover and Marlon. Which
Oh.
I'm sure Bryce is listening to this now. He's like rifling through his records. And he's probably going to send me a picture of the Marlon and Roger Glover single in like 2 minutes after he hears this. But I wasn't familiar with it. I tried to look it up and couldn't find it. But Ray actually has a box set coming out, a 61 song multiple disc box set coming out in April, which he let me know about. So I'll be on the lookout for that. It's coming out from Sing Song Records, Sing Song Music rather. I'm sorry. So when that comes out, he says those two tracks are going to be on it. So I can't wait to hear them. I actually tried to look for the single, but the record is like, um, it's something crazy. It's like, oh, it's only like 6 or 7 pounds for the record. That's not bad, but that's like 20 pounds shipping. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to pay, 30 pounds almost or 25 pounds or whatever it's whatever, $30 to get a 45 with two songs on it. But I think
Mm.
I'll wait for the Ray Fenwick box set. So keep your look. It's called Ray Fenwick Playing Through the Changes. So there you go. And then, of course, like I said, on lead vocals, we have Anne Kavanaugh, who I told you about. She's appeared in Jesus Christ Superstar. She's worked with Steely Dan, Roger Daltrey, Mick Ronson, and Jack Bruce. In the 80s, she moved back to Australia and supported acts such as James Brown, Tom Jones, Dionne Warwick, and Patti LaBelle. And in 2000, started working as a vocal coach. And there you go. And we got a whole cast of characters. I'm backing vocals and drums and some additional horns and stuff. Um, but there you have it. That is the story behind Fancy. And then speaking of fancy, you've got the album cover, which honestly isn't all that fancy. It's pretty low key. It's just got the fancy logo, and it's got the wild thing in kind of like a neon light sort of font. Um, then it's got Ray Fenwick looking too cool for school with all the patches on his jeans. You got Les Binks kind of snuggling up to Anne Kavanaugh, and Mo Foster off to the side, kind of looking like a professor, like a college professor or something.
Yeah.
Um, but great, simple album cover, gets to the point. Band shot, everyone wearing jeans, even the ripped off jeans skirt that Anne Kavanaugh's wearing.
It
Skirt or
looks pretty
shorts?
cool. It
Yeah, they're
it
all.
looks like shorts.
Well, it's funny because you got like Ray Fenwick, Anne Kavanaugh, and Les Banks all have like leather jackets and blue jeans, and she's got the big leather boots. And Mo Foster's like blazer, plaid shirt, the glasses, kind of looks like the professor.
The professor of the band.
I like it.
I like the album cover. It has that neon sign type of thing. I like the pink on black, and then like the font that Wild Thing is in. The whole thing, it almost looks like a diner neon sign. It
Mm-hmm.
looks very. Where was the? Did you say where the album was recorded?
I did not. I mean, I would imagine it's London.
Because I
A
was going
London.
to say it looks very city downtown, like so like big metropolitan city, be it like somewhere in Europe or New York or something like that. But that's kind of what it makes me think of, like a really kind of urban
Oh yeah, I
sounding
guess
album.
he's kind
You
of in
know,
the they're kind of in the yeah, like outside of a building, but I kind of thought it was more like a when I first saw it, kind of thought it was more like there were like trees in the background, but I guess it's not.
Yeah, when I see this, it gives me that impression of it being um, kind of like that city vibe,
It was
you
recorded at the
know, which
Music
is
Centre, Wembley, London, formerly known as CTS Studios.
cool.
Um,
Okay.
it was formed in 1972 when CTS and Delane Lee Studios merged.
Hmm.
We've talked about Delane Lee many times in the early Deep Purple days and such. Hmm, very
Yes.
cool. So yeah, there you go. The back cover is kind of funny. It's it's kind of takes the same and it's cool because like we've seen many times, it's got that hand drawn font. It's not it's and I guess kind of almost all like logos and stuff back then were hand drawn because it wasn't being typeset, it wasn't being done in Photoshop. Um, but it's kind of funny on the back. It says Wild Thing, an old song, a new version, a chart record, fancy, a new band, great guys, fantastic chick. Don't listen to this record alone. It takes two to tango. A Mike Hurst production for Solid Gold Organization. It's like kind of like, hey, you cool cats, we're gonna tell you all about this band on the back. I love they're just kind of like free form kind of way of doing it. There's the record label there. Boom. And that's it. Not a ton to go over. Just designed by Marianne Llewellyn, photography by Richard Dunkley, who did the photography for Eddie Hardin's Home Is Where You Find It. So always some connections there. And the engineer on this album is Dave Hunt, who worked for Velvet Velvet Fog, Killing Floor, and Noel Redding. So there you go. Not a lot of huge names on it, but
No rating from Jimi Hendrix.
that I believe so. The one and only, right? Mike Hurst, as we talked about, he kind of co-wrote almost all the songs with Fenwick, and he had worked with a lot of bands, including Nirvana, but not that Nirvana, the Nirvana from the '60s, um, Hardin York, Cat Stevens, and he did Ray Fenwick's "Queen of the Night" single, which I know we've talked about before, which is amazing. Look at it; it's not on YouTube, but look it up on Vimeo. It's great. Uh, P.P. Arnold and Samantha Fox, another Samantha Fox connection. I can't remember what our last one was, but I just remember we had one.
It was wasn't it one of the guys in the Ian Gillan band?
It might have been
I think,
Ian Gillan band or Gillan.
or yeah, one of Gillan connection.
It
Played
might have
guitar
been
with her later, I think.
Samantha. Yes, yeah, that was it. The guitarist. Yeah, was it Steve Bird? It might have been. Um, which means, guys, that if you're kind of thinking, why are they covering Fancy? We might cover Samantha Fox one day. It could happen. There's a connection. No matter how tenuous, we'll make that connection. Okay, so that's kind of the whole background of the album. There's not obviously not a ton of information out there about this album. This is this complete recordings is a great collector's item if you're interested in this era and this kind of music. Um, I love that Cherry Red is doing stuff like this and putting out stuff like that. They did all the Trapeze re-releases and they're just putting out great stuff like this all the time. The packaging on these things is amazing. The liner notes are incredible. It's great that they're putting it out there because these are like niche things. These aren't things you're going to find or wouldn't find in, like, if you went to Target or something to the CD section. These are like really niche, but it's great for like collectors who love this stuff to be able to get your hands on. Like for me, for the first time, actually owning these on CD, so it's awesome. All right. So with that said, we did a lot of background behind the actual Wild Thing song, and that's what this album begins with is Wild Thing. Ready to check it out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do it. Wild Thing. Kind of that like Gary Glitter drum sound.
Kind of the pulsating thing is kind of interesting.
There you go.
Wild thing. You make my heart sing.
It's like they're almost like singing over her.
Everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, if she sucks.
Wild thing.
think she works really well in the context of what they're going for here.
Oh yeah.
Well, thing, I think I love you, but I wanna know for sure. Come on, hold me tight. I love you.
It sounds like almost like what you hear from like Barry White, that like really close reverb into the microphone, you know?
Wow, thing.
Interesting.
But in this case, with a woman instead of Barry White.
You make everything groovy. Wow, thing.
It's kind of cool. This is Alan Hawkshaw on the keyboards.
Some pretty good stuff. Digging it.
I like this little breakdown.
Wow, thing. I think you move me. But I wanna know for sure.
I mean, she's mostly
I don't-
just speaking, not necessarily singing.
Hold me tight.
I mean, I don't think she's bad. I just don't think she's like remarkable in any way. That's all.
Right.
You know, like they said, like, oh, she wasn't good. It's like, I mean, she's just not great. But I mean,
Well, she's doing.
it's a job done.
I mean, I think like they said, they figured out the way to make it work was to have her like breathe the vocals, and they were going for like a sexy sound, and I think they're achieving that by having her moaning and groaning throughout the whole song. But I think the obvious flaw that would present itself after this, which obviously they came to the same conclusion, is okay, we recorded the song, I got my sexy version of Wild Thing that I really wanted to get, sounds great, it was a big hit in the States or whatever. Problem, what do we do now? Like we can't make entire albums worth of songs with her just moaning and groaning and breathing all the words, right? It's a cool effect for that one song, but like, can you imagine 2 or 3 songs in of just you know, just having these maybe a little sexier than what I just did.
You sounded like you were just. You sounded like you were gonna be ill. Like, boy, Nate, if that's you being sexy, then got a lot of work to do.
Wild Thing. But no, I mean, I think in the context of this song, it worked great. You know, like I think it was honestly pretty genius on their part to, as producers and writers, to say, okay, it's, of course it was funny that they ended up with this woman anyway. Like, like why do we have this woman who can't sing in our band? And they said, well, let's make the best with what we have, and found a way to have her add to the song in a way that made it work. It's actually pretty ingenious. So, what would you rank Wild Thing? What are we gonna use for rankings on this one?
I don't know. How about I'm gonna give this one I'm gonna say like three jorts.
Jorts. Yeah, they did look more like jorts that she was wearing than a skirt.
In honor of her jean shorts. Yeah. In honor of
Yeah.
her jean shorts. Three jorts. Which, as we know, is the kind of baseline rating for something that, you know, most of us think, most of the time we think is good or average. I think it was okay. I definitely think it was a early to mid 70s sounding
Mhm.
version of a song. I think that kind of pulsating noise going over the whole song was actually a little kind of distracting and didn't really do it for me. But I kind of liked how tight the band sounded. I liked the guitar sound. The vocals sounded a little like, the performance wasn't bad. Like I said, it just sounded kind of average, but I guess it sounded kind of like thin, maybe thinly
Yeah.
produced, but I like the background vocals. I thought the background vocals were cool, and I thought that middle section that probably made Glenn Hughes sit up somewhere in the
And
earth
take
and like
note.
his ears perk up
Is there some funk
was
happening
definitely
somewhere?
cool. I sensed some funk happening. That was really cool. I enjoyed that. I thought it was a great spin on the song, but I feel like at this point, the song is so played out
Mm.
that but I mean, this version was really one of the most different versions I heard, but to me, it was just okay. I don't see how it was a big hit. Maybe it was because of the single, the sleeve or whatever enticed people
I
to
mean,
buy, but
certainly
I
wouldn't
thought it
hurt.
was
It would
pretty
get
good.
people's attention for sure.
Yeah, but I thought it was good. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3.5. Where this loses points for me is that I've just never really cared for this song all that much at all. Like just in
Yeah.
general, any version of it, that anyone's ever done, it's never been a song that I've cared for.
Mhm.
I give them points for making the best of the situation that they had, having like a goal, and somehow kind of like, I think the story behind it is actually really interesting, how they kind of, again, how do you end up with a penthouse pet as your singer, and like that's kind of on you that you've ended up with a singer that can't sing, like you recruited her and she can't sing. It's not her fault.
Yeah.
But they seemed to really do the best that they could with that. I thought the breakdown was awesome. That was definitely, if that was like the whole, if that was emblematic of the entire song, I would have loved this song. But the only reason I liked it is because it kind of gave you a break from the whole wild thing, which that's just on me. I'm not a crazy fan of that song. So that's where I stand with
Yeah,
it.
that breakdown was a highlight for
Yeah,
sure.
if there was no breakdown, it would have been a 3. And if anything other than that, I don't even know if the original if I would give a 3, because I'm just, like I said,
Mhm.
never really cared for that song. But
Mhm.
I know I am in the minority because apparently everyone in the world has done a version of this song. So I've heard it a million times, a million
Mhm.
different ways, and maybe that's part of it. I'm just like, wild thing, I get it. But in
I mean,
1973,
it was probably one of the first. Yeah.
the song was only hadn't even been around for 8 or 9 years. So
I think it was probably one of the first songs that I learned to play on guitar because it's so easy.
yeah, yep, I can see that. All right, the next track
So,
on the
yeah.
album is a song title that you're familiar with, but not this song itself. This is not the Kiss song, but this is the fancy song "Love for Sale," or I guess is that "Got Love for Sale"?
Got Love for Sale.
"Got Love for Sale." Close enough.
Close.
Here we go. "Love for Sale." Now we're gonna have Anne Kavanaugh singing. This is original, written by Hurst and Fenwick.
Wow, that's funny. I can tell by her voice that she was on Butterfly Ball.
She wasn't though.
Like very distinct, very distinct.
She's not from the Butterfly Ball though, Anne Kavanaugh.
Oh, wasn't?
No. Sounds like she could be though.
Edit that out. Yeah, no. Edit that out. Edit out my stupidity. No, but she sounds like she could have been one of the backup singers from Butterfly Ball.
Oh, totally. She sounds like Lizzie B.
Yeah, that's who I thought it was.
This is Mo Foster, man.
Oh,
Exactly.
I was
what
just
you-
gonna say we
what
get
you
some
get
like
when you get
kick-ass Mo Foster in here.
You just got that riding that cow belt in the whole song. She's got a really got some really good power in her voice.
I really love Marlon's crunchy guitar sound. in this.
Marlon.
Oh,
So this right here sounds like an Ian Gillan band breakdown,
I was just gonna say that.
and that's why I love it.
Well, considering that Marlon wrote most of that stuff.
You're just not gonna give up with Marlon. I love it.
Nope.
That's why, like, when Fenwick has that like 2-minute solo on Clear Air Turbulence, it's like uninterrupted 2 minutes. It's just like it could be 10 minutes and I'd be happy.
Well, now after hearing him on a few different recordings, I can definitely pick out his style now,
Yeah.
which is very distinct, and I like making those connections. Like when you said this sounds like an Ian Gillan band breakdown, like you can, you know, now I'm starting to kind of flesh out like his style, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, like this section of the song I couldn't see, but that breakdown I could see him bringing that to Ian Gillan band and them just going along with it.
Oh yeah.
Colin Towns putting in a little one of his little funny silly synth patches on there and sounding awesome.
I think it's a good chorus too. It's really catchy. It's like a sing-along chorus.
That's a great hook. Cole Foster breaking a little double stop there. He almost sounded a little bit like who am I picking up? Who does she sound like? A little like Ann Wilson a little. Which is high praise.
I'd say that's a really cool move too, them trying to incorporate a female vocalist in a rock type of album like this. Because, I mean, I guess back then you saw a lot of bands doing that, maybe more than you would today. Or maybe not even today, but like maybe in the, say, 20 years from then, you would just seem like predominantly male fronted bands. But and I don't know if they got another female vocalist because that was their first kind of hook, was trying to get you know, a like a sexy female vocalist up front. The other one didn't work, so then they went for another one, or if they just wanted that for the band. But I mean, I think that makes it kind of makes it more interesting than if you just had like a guy, another just male vocalist or guy vocalist in here singing this stuff. Like it's cool hearing like a powerful woman rock singer.
Yeah. Yeah, she does a great
I
job.
enjoy it.
So, what do you give
Yeah.
Love for Sale?
I give Love for Sale 4 jorts.
Ah, excellent. 4 jorts.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Yeah, I really, like I said, I love the guitar tone in the beginning, like just this really crunchy tone and this really kind of I don't know, whatever you call it, that phasing, you know, that effect
Yeah,
that
it
happened
was
at
like
the end of the
Yeah, I think it must have been like a phaser
yeah,
or
like
something.
flange phase, something like that. And I really liked the hook of the chorus.
Mhm.
And of course, like the Moe's bass being just right up front did not disappoint. It
Nope.
just, I mean, when we're listening, like if you listen to this and you weren't a fan, you'd just be like, oh, okay. But we're trying to pick out all of these great musicians that we already know their work, and we're enjoying it for that too. Like when you hear like that bass, you're not thinking like, oh, okay, it's a little like, yeah, Moe's really rocking it. So it's like that makes it more enjoyable. And that breakdown, like, oh, it sounds like it could be a Gillan band song or something. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and I
That
think
enhanced it for
anybody
me.
that's like a fan of 70s rock and sort of rock funk sort of stuff would really enjoy this. And I don't think a lot of people have really been exposed to this band because it's kind of flown under the radar. But I will also give the song a 4. I really, really like it. Love Ray Fenwick's solo. Love Moe's playing. I love what Les Binks is doing. And I think the vocals are really strong. So, and I wonder how many people picking this up even uh, made the connection that it was a different singer. Because what like I said earlier, what Helen Kant was doing in that first song is so kind of out there that you could easily say, oh yes, now she's singing, she's not going for that breathing sort of thing. But
Sure.
really, really nice job.
Yeah, if you didn't know any better, but it was pretty seamless. Yeah.
Well, it's time to move on with our next song. Move On. You might have noticed that this is not Anne Kavanaugh.
Really? So who's this?
I think this is Mike Hurst. It doesn't sound like Ray Fenwick to me, but I'm assuming it's Mike Hurst. And this horn arrangement is incredible.
I think so far what they got going for them is that the choruses are really catchy, even if they're just short,
Yep.
And I like how this is a little blues flavored without being too lazy blues.
Yes. Yep.
I like the depth that the horns add to it, one section.
I think without the horns, the song would be kind of just plodding, but the horns really keep it busy and interesting. And this little guitar hook here is great. Moe's playing is a little understated on this one.
Yeah, it's like I'll hang back.
Just letting the horns do their thing.
I think I'll hang back for this one song.
There you go. That was Move On. All right.
Nice. Another you were just mentioning a Kiss song, and that's a Paul Stanley solo album song title.
Move On is? Are there any other Kiss titles?
Yep.
These songs, any of these sound like, except for I'm a Woman, they all kind of sound like they could be Kiss songs.
Yeah.
Except for,
well, well, actually, you were surprised.
Between the Devil and
actually,
Me.
Well, actually, the Devil Is Me was a song off I think it was the last Kiss album from 10 years ago or whatever it was. Touch Me, Paul Stanley on that same 78 solo event had Hold Me, Touch Me.
There you go. You got
That's
love for sale.
interesting.
Yeah, there are kind of a lot of maybe Fancy inspired more Kiss song titles than we know.
Discuss.
No.
Interesting.
Well, we'll talk about that a little later because well, I guess we could talk about it now. Fancy did they performed with Kiss in 1974. I
Well,
don't
that
know,
makes
as
sense.
an
I mean,
opening supporting act or whatever, and I tried to look for information as to like where or when it would have been. I found some like
mhm.
you'd probably have better resources than I would, but I found some like Kiss sites that listed their tour dates and everything, but they didn't really necessarily say who the supporting acts were. But so they would have played
Mhm.
very early on with Kiss. So
Well, then
Paul
that means
Stanley's
that
like
they must
looking at
have.
their set list and just writing down all the songs. It's like, oh yeah, got some great song titles here.
That one looks good. All right.
Oh, you down in the front. I got
But
some great
that
song titles. All right.
well, I think they must have toured the like over in the U.S. or Canada, because early on that's where Kiss was touring. They didn't. I don't unless I'm no, I don't think that I'm wrong. I don't think that they went over to Europe until like a couple of years later when they got bigger. But
Right. Yeah,
74,
but
they mostly were on this side.
by the time
But
they
yeah,
they
they
were
were
doing
playing with
that,
like
Fancy would have been dissolved, I'm
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I mean they were playing like at that time with everybody and anybody, like on just any bills
Yep.
that they could get booked on. And I mean, even back then, I mean, you would see some of the craziest combos of bands that you'd never see today.
And when you have bands
Which
that are at that kind of lower, like Fancy was at the time they were playing with Kiss, they were probably at the same level, right? Before Kiss like
yeah.
achieved superstardom, and yeah, at that level, yeah, they'll pair any two bands up. They'll just be like, "What is this? A five man acoustic banjo and accordion band?" And we'll put them with like I don't know, Budgie or something. Who knows? But um, but then yeah, they start to kind of make things make a little more sense, I guess, when you're a bigger act. But anyway, Move On.
Right.
What would you rank Move On?
So move on. So I'll give that 3.5 jorts. Um, Definitely some good parts in there, but I feel like maybe a little bit of a filler track. I wasn't as keen on it as the Love for Sale.
Mhm.
That one I enjoyed a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more of a hook or whatever, but still pretty good, enjoyable.
I will also give it a 3.5. I think it reminds me of like some of what Ray Fenwick would have been doing in like Spencer Davis Group and stuff. Like it has that kind of like bebopping feeling to it that I really like. Really good song. Like I
Hmm.
said, it seems to me like I don't know much about Mike Hurst, um, but he sounds like he was probably a really smart producer because it seems like with Wild Thing and Move On so far, it seems like those songs could have easily fallen apart or been like um poorly done if in less capable hands. And adding that horn section of the song was genius because without the horn section, it would have been probably a very generic sounding song. And with the horn section, it really lightened it up and made it really exciting. And having that vocal with the horn, the kind of counterpart horns doing their own thing. Yeah, I thought it was great.
Hmm.
Um, the next song up on side one of this album is I Don't Need Your Love. Breaking out the acoustic guitar.
Working all day, working all night, hoping to God everything is alright. Last time I saw him, I got the news, moaning and groaning, singing the blues. He said, listen, baby, I got news for you. Being alone is a thing I don't need. I used to follow wherever he'd lead. Friend of mine said he'd been getting around, and then from my window I heard this old sound.
I kind of get that vibe of like Shining Star.
Oh yeah. I was kind of thinking it sounded like it could be a Tommy Bolin solo cut. Just swap out the vocals with his. Sounds like something he could do.
Yeah.
Listen, baby, I got news for you. I don't need your love. I don't need your love. I don't need
There's just so much character behind it when you've got
I don't need your love.
that looseness and improv on the drums, and then the bass doing what it's doing, and then a backwards guitar solo here.
Mm-hmm.
Always fun to do a backwards guitar solo.
Whoa.
Getting into it. Bringing some organ in at the end. Mo Foster just eats these songs up. He's just like, just give me the chord chart. I will do my thing, and it's great because anyone. It could be considered overdone almost, except it's so tastefully done the way that he throws those things in there. It just makes it so interesting, and so many of these songs I think would be so much worse off if he was just trying to really sit back. He's not being like super showy, but he's just keeping the song super interesting. And same thing with what Ray Fenwick's doing on guitar.
I like when the solo section is on boom 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 boom.
Yeah,
It's
fantastic.
like, yeah, do it, Mo. Do it, Mo.
Great stuff.
But that's to your point though, really simple.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could probably play that, but I mean, it stands out. So
Well, they were talking about I think it's in the booklet here in this boxed set about how these guys were Mo Foster, Ray Fenwick, Les Banks to a lesser extent because he was still kind of new, and Andy Cap. They were all session people, so they were just used to just walking into the studio, banging out, doing sessions, and doing an amazing job. And when they started to do live shows, they were like, oh, like kind of like freaked out because they didn't play, I guess, that much. I mean, of course, they had all played live, but maybe they hadn't played to such big crowds or whatever it was, but they were a little more comfortable in the studio. But yeah, you can tell by how this is put together that they're great studio musicians. So I Don't Need Your Love by Hurst and Fenwick. What do you say about that one?
I'm going to give this one a 3. I mean, I thought that there were some good bits to it, but overall, it was just kind of like the previous track, a little less, just kind of a little slower, maybe a little filler-ish for my taste.
Yeah, I'll kind of see that one and give it a 3 as well. Solid track. I really like her vocal performance at the end, especially when she really starts letting loose. But this is a really good, like, forgotten 70s album that just something great to just pop on in the background and just get that vibe and all those cool little things that they're doing musically. it's if you want to experience the 70s, but not maybe go with something you're used to or something you listen to all the time. Fancy is
Right. Yeah.
fits the bill very well. But, um, okay. The final song on the first side of this album is called One Night. It's written by Dave Bartholomew and Pearl King. It was released in 1956, recorded by Smiley Lewis, and Dave Bartholomew had written a ton of songs for Fats Domino. So they picked this one, I guess, as a cover. Would have been about 20 years old or so at this point. And here we go with One Night.
One night with you. That's all I'm praying for. The things that we two could plan would make my dreams come true. Just call my name.
This reminds me of something you'd hear on like a Cher Kazoo, like something Ian Gillan would have done. Like I could have seen him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had like this kind of like a couple of those bluesy numbers he did, that Elvis song, and a couple other things he did that I could have seen. But this song really, when I first heard it, I didn't know the original. I still don't. I haven't heard it.
Oh, no, I don't know the original either.
But when I first heard this, I said, "Oh, this must have been inspired by the Beatles." Oh, Darling. They have a song, "Oh, Darling," from Abbey Road. I said they must have gotten inspiration from this. So I looked it up and I was like, oh, the song's from the 50s. So obviously the Beatles must have stolen it from that, because it hits a lot of the same marks. Or maybe if I heard the original, I'd say, okay, they took a little of the Beatles flair and put it onto this old song. But I think it's more likely that the Beatles kind of lifted this idea or this feeling from this song.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pretty standard blues progression. It's not nothing crazy. Nice.
Oh, there you go. Quick ending.
So doing a little research, it seems like Elvis did this song. I'm assuming it's the same song, and
Huh.
it does look like that was a inspiration of the Beatles song, which I never knew until listening to this album and looking this up just the other day. So there you have it. That would explain the connection. All right. One Night. What do you think about the song One Night?
I'll give it 1 + 3. I mean 1 times 3. Sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to work one in there and I couldn't do it. I'm an idiot. Yeah, 3.
The single-digit math problems became too much for you.
Oh God. Don't math will not be my middle name in the future episodes.
John Mathmatola.
Mathematola. Yeah, but anyways, Yeah, just I think these middle tracks are kind of just sunk to the level for me, or just down to just being average, because I'm not really finding any hooks in here that I can grab onto.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that being said, the production and the performances and all that is still really good. I think it's just the songs at this point are just not grabbing me, because I like a good hook. I like stuff that's more fast paced. I was maybe hoping for something funkier based on what we'd heard previously from these guys. So it's not bad, but it's not grabbing me. Not yet.
All right, I will give this one a 3.5. I really dig that the Beatles connection. That's one of my probably my favorite Beatles songs.
Hmm.
And I really like kind of hearing the inspiration from where it comes from, even though this is a cover. Um, yeah, I really like. I to me, I see like in their performances, like some of the material. I mean, I don't necessarily know that. I'm not usually a huge fan of covers on an album. This album's got 3 covers on it. That's the second one. So I'm not usually a big fan of that, but I feel like with the material they've got and how what their performances are, they're really doing a lot with it, and their performances are really shining. I thought that was a great performance by all of them. I
Hmm.
loved bringing the horns back in too. It was great. I really think that while don't have a ton on Mike Hurst, like his production, he went on to do some production. He did a lot of production, but I feel like he must have been a really strong producer based on what I'm hearing, because I feel like this could have with this material could have easily gone a different way. Not that the material is not strong, but I feel like these songs could have been recorded in ways that wouldn't have highlighted how good the musicianship is, or kept your interest as well. But they were quick. A lot of these songs are quick, 3-minute songs in, get to the point, give you a hook, and get out. So I think they're doing a really good job of that so far.
Hmm.
All right, next track, we're flipping the album over to side B, and the first track on side B is a song called Touch Me. Stormy night in the city. Rain, police sirens. Not really a situation where you want to be touched.
In the night, in the city, alone in my room.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Oh, do you?
Ooh, I get the feeling. Ooh, it feels good. Yeah, I get the feeling.
So this was a hit in the US too.
Sleep in my room last night.
Hmm.
Something wasn't quite the same. Just as I was reaching for the nearest light, I heard somebody calling my name. Ooh, I get the feeling.
I mean, it sounds like they're going for the same, very much the same thing that they were on Wild Thing.
Yeah. It's somewhere Glenn Hughes's antenna's going up.
No complaints from me about a song like this.
Yeah, this definitely has that kind of like hook and simple guitar riff that I like.
Just let me kiss you. Ooh, come closer, baby. Shivers down my backbone 'cause my man is
I like how they kind of put that,
Then my pulse began
I don't know, it sounds kind of like a backwards metronome type of thing, like kind of under the drums.
Went black, 'cause I
Yeah, almost sounds like a heartbeat.
Yeah, that started off the song. I think that's a really cool way to kind of, I don't know, pad out the song, kind of like when they use like pedal tones and stuff in the 80s to like thicken up songs. Kind of like how they did that, kind of like with that little bit of a less distracting thing than the heartbeat thing in the first song.
It almost, like I was saying, it almost sounds like they wanted to, now that they had a stronger singer, they wanted to do the same thing, get the same feel that they got with Wild Thing, throw their own, you know, get their own writing credits on it, throw somebody with a really strong vocals onto it. And that it was released as a single, and it made it into the top 20 in the US. So the US was ready for some more fancy after Wild Thing. But it's funny because it begins it sounds so similar to the Wild Thing when it first starts. I actually thought I had accidentally played Wild Thing, started Wild Thing again, but then it kind of obviously goes in a slightly different direction. But, so there you go. Touch Me. What do you think?
4.
Oh, wow.
4 jorts. We're back to jorts.
That's a total of 8 jort
I
legs.
think
For those of you keeping
we don't
track
want
at home.
too many. Yeah. But I give it a 4. Yeah, I like the unique type of thing that they're doing here. Like I said, they have that kind of like that percussive backwards undertone. I'm not sure what it is. It sounds like they kind of took like a backward, like
kick drum or something.
Yeah, like the backward kick drum or something, and just had it kind of going underneath everything, which just adds like another layer to the song. It's not as distracting as that other thing that I said the beginning of the first song, that kind of like swirling, noise or whatever. But I'm always a big fan of like really just kind of simple, crunchy guitar riffs like this. We're back to the catchy choruses. So yeah, I like it. And even though it's a little slower paced in tempo, it's like it's still got a groove to it that I really like.
Nice.
So there you go.
Right. I will give this one a 3.5. I also liked it for all the reasons you said. I thought it was very reminiscent of the first. Well, it's weird. I'm giving it the same rating I guess I gave Wild Thing, even though I feel like I like this one better because it's not Wild Thing. But yeah, I think it's a really good start to the second. I guess the only thing I would say negative about it would be it's too similar in tone to the beginning of the Wild Thing song, but it's really great. It also just kind of makes me think like, okay, if you did this Wild Thing song, why even leave that one on the album? Why not just start the album with this song? Forget the Wild Thing, you know what I mean, and then go with it from there. But
yeah, exactly.
They might have needed an extra track for because it kind of seems like you're doing the same thing twice. It's like we talk a lot in like when we're talking about other albums or Deep Purple albums where it's like, oh, this is the same kind of song as this one. It's like Ritchie's famous for it, Rainbow. Okay, we want to one up this song. It's like Mistreated, but to the next level, or it's like Catch the Rainbow, but to the next level. Or they're always kind of trying to do the same thing, but perfect it and make it better. But there's never two of those on the same album. And that's what I feel like is here. It's like, let's do what we did with Wild Thing, but make it better. Better singer, better arrangement, better song overall. And so I'm kind of going against my own rules and docking it half a point for sort of having already been done. But on its own, it probably should be a 4 because I think it would be a great album opener. But there you go. All right, next track, US Surprise. Maybe that's about their surprise hit in the US. I don't know, but here we go. US Surprise. Ooh, fuzzy bass.
You know, I really feel like this sounds like some early trapeze,
Yeah,
like
that.
something off Medusa. Like I could picture Glenn singing this.
Yeah, it's got that like power trio sound to it, because essentially is.
Yeah, like kind of Black Cloud.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you got the horn section.
Horns
back
just
in
come
there.
in from out of nowhere. It's great.
Yeah, you notice that Marlon isn't taking a lot of guitar solos here either.
No, he's really keeping it understated.
Yeah, very, very restrained.
Which is not necessarily a good thing, because I love.
Yeah, we want
his
more.
solos.
Yeah, we want more. More Marlon.
But he's just a professional. He plays for the song, and he's great. But I love when he lets loose, like the beginning of Wind of the Willows, or any of the stuff in Ian Gillan band. Just him saying like, "I'm gonna. How many bars do I have? Awesome. I'm gonna solo until you tell me to stop."
Yeah.
He sets such great style. It's not overly showy. He's not shredding. He's just playing really interesting stuff. And I think that's what always grabbed me about that, like Clear Turbulence, is just that really showcased how incredible a player he was, without having to resort to any trickery or crazy shredding or anything. He's just such a great player. All right. Well,
Yeah, I mean that's really the good thing about these albums and these songs is that there's something to be said for musicians like this that can rip and do all this cool stuff, being like, oh yeah, it's great that they're restrained and they're playing for the song, but then there's also that part of you that's like, come on, man, just like let it rip on a few of them.
Come on, Marlon, show us
Right?
what you got. Something tells me on side 2 that's not the last we're going to hear of Marlon. I think he's going to have to let loose on another song.
Glad I got you on board with the whole Marlon thing.
He's Marlon from now on. I wonder.
Well, he is on this album.
The only thing I didn't ask, I gotta respond and say, you gotta tell me if you still have that jacket, and if so, remember like a while back when it's tweeted something, and then about Coverdale, the California Jam, and then he tweeted back a picture of himself holding the shirt that he was wearing in the California Jam. I want that same
That's
picture
cool.
of Marlon holding up the Marlon jacket. I want to see it.
I mean, I'm a big fan of like musicians doing that kind of thing, having like an alias or whatever, because it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Since we were talking about Kiss before, heard of Wendy O. Williams? From the Plasmatics.
Yep.
And she did I think it was her first solo album, was produced by Gene Simmons, and basically like most of Kiss at the time was like her backup band, which
Oh,
like I
right. Yep.
didn't know. And it was like, wow. So basically the Creatures of the Night version of Kiss was like mainly her backup band. Even Ace Frehley was like on her album, which I was like, I can't believe this is like hearing a Lost Kiss album with Wendy O. Williams on vocals,
Yep.
but
Yep.
she was like wild. And but Gene didn't credit himself as the bass player on the album because I think he played almost all the bass on the album, but his surname on it was Reginald Van Helsing.
Oh, I've heard that name. It must have probably been on like Pot of Thunder or something, but
Yeah, exactly. Which is like so fun because it's like obviously, from his love of horror movies and everything, the most fake name you've ever heard. So I'm a fan of known musicians or musicians that are like have a career doing one thing and then they like play under a pseudonym or something and it's like obviously fake, I think it's fun.
who was the uh um Vanessa Parody? Remember that album?
Yeah.
It was
Oh, Lenny Kravitz.
Lenny Kravitz produced it, and he did like I think he wrote
You
all the
loved that.
songs, and it was him
Yeah.
and Craig Ross was playing guitar on it, and he produced it. And I remember hearing, I forget, I have no idea how I heard about the album or anything, but I was like, I've got to get this. It came out like 92 or something. And we were
Mhm.
huge into Lenny Kravitz at the time, Let Love Rule and Mama Said and all that. And I think it was even before he did Are You Gonna Go My Way? And I heard of this album, and it was just basically like I got it, and I'm like, holy crap, this is like getting a bonus Lenny Kravitz album. Just like you said,
Mhm.
it was Kravitz from start to finish with just a different with this woman singing who was great. And of course I listened to some of her stuff after that album and I was like, yeah, I'm not into this at all. I just that Lenny, it's a Lenny Kravitz album with someone else on vocals, and
Yeah.
it's awesome. And yeah, it's cool when people will actually go out there and do stuff like that. That was a fantastic. I haven't listened to that album in years. I got to check that out again.
Mhm. I
Uh,
remember you were way into it.
yeah, I mean, I played the hell out of that album because at that time when I told my stories of when I was cleaning the church, listening to Clearer Turbulence. Well, I was also listening to Let Love Rule and Mama Said quite a bit. And so when you hear that, oh, there's like a new version of that era that you just completely missed somehow, you get really excited. And that's exactly how I felt. And I was so happy to get my hands on a copy of that album at the time. It's
Mhm.
it's just like anything else. Or like when I found out there was like a Japanese cast version of Jesus Christ Superstar, I was like, awesome. Let's check it out. I knew when you love something so much, like you wish you could discover it again or buy it again or something. It's that kind
Mhm.
of same feeling, and that's kind of how I
Yeah.
felt about that. So did I rank this one yet? 3.5.
Oh,
US
okay.
surprise. US surprise gets a 3.5. 3.5 jorts. That's 7 jort legs.
Nice.
14 total from the two of us. Moving on, we have Between the Devil and Me.
Hmm.
So this song kind of has like a
The,
Bo Diddley sort of.
the I Want Candy
Yeah, there
vibe.
you go. Almost sounds like a Dr. John song, the way it's like bebopping around like that. And that is not a bad thing. Sounds like it doesn't sound like hand claps. It sounds like they're all like in like a stairwell hitting their shoes together.
Yeah.
It's kind of like overly affected guitars.
That's definitely fun.
This whole album has got a great. All the songs just have a great groove to them. Kind of
Yeah, it was definitely fun.
not what you'd expect from a Between the Devil and Me. Sounds like it could be more of like a heavy song or a kind of like raunchy song. It's a fun song.
Hmm.
Between the Devil and Me. How many jorts are you giving this one?
I'm gonna give it 3. Um, I wish that it went to a different place a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Like I was almost expecting like the and I'm sorry, I don't know the drum term, but like whatever, or the musical term for what the drums were doing during the whole song. But it was kind of like what kind of beat would you call that?
Like a shuffle or something?
Yeah, so it was like I thought like we'll go from a shuffle beat. I was thinking that, but I didn't want to be wrong. But to like breaking into like maybe like a straight beat
Yeah, it's like
in the verses or something to kind of break it up a little bit. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Or leading into the chorus or something, and it's just it kind of just went like stayed in that shuffle the whole time. It's almost felt like the song was kind of in limbo the whole time.
Yeah, like yeah, if it had stopped at one point and then gone into like a more of a straightforward beat.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would have liked to have heard that. I thought that would have made it a little more interesting, but I thought that it was kind of a fun, if not derivative kind of song because I
mhm.
mean, how many I mean at that time I don't know how much of that, dan, 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 dan,
Yeah,
songs were out.
It's the Bo
But
Diddley beat,
yeah.
it's been done a million times.
Yeah.
And I think
So, I mean,
it's kind of like what was the blues song that they did? Move I don't need your love or
I think so.
move on maybe? I forget already. Um but it's yeah, I think once again they did it really good. I'll also give it a 3. I think they did a really good job in that um of doing that genre where it could easily be very played out, but they do a really solid job of representing it and presenting a it's just a fun kind of easygoing album. It's the I think the complaints I'd have about this song is like you said, it doesn't go to like a different place or have any sort of breakdown.
Hmm.
And I think like Marlon's guitar, like it would be great if we heard like if it was a little bit more easier to hear. It was very affected and very kind of off time. It would have been good
Hmm.
to hear something a little more straightforward or hear a different like kind of like funky breakdown or something.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's it. Um, the next song up is a Lieber Stoller number, a classic, a rock and roll classic, and that song is "I'm a Woman." You've got a classic, rock and roll classic from the 50s,
I
right?
can wash all your socks and have 'em all hanging out on the line. I can iron your shirts before you can count from 1 to 9. I can get dressed up, go out
Oh,
and swing
1962,
till
I'm sorry.
4 a.m.
Oh,
Lay down at 5, get up and start all over again, 'cause I'm a woman, W-O-M-A-N. I'll say it again. Yes, I'm a woman, W-O-M-A-N. I can scrub the house until it's shining like a dime. I can powder my nose and grease the car at the very same time. Then if you're hungry, I'm gonna fill you full of grits. And if it's loving you want, I'll spread your back to bits. 'Cause I'm a woman.
Almost sounds like Candy Gibbons on this track.
yeah. You know, I was thinking the same thing a little bit. Like it sounded like a Zephyr track.
Yeah, the whole track actually, you're right, sounds Zephyr'ish, the way they're doing it.
But also because it's kind of like your kind of a basic blues arrangement here. It sounds a lot like I Just Want to Make Love to You by Foghat.
Oh, yep.
Is that a Mo
Bass.
Foster bass solo?
I believe so.
Wow, that was unexpected.
You get that piano rocking out in the background.
That's kind of a weird little dissonant thing that they
Yeah.
do right there.
Other notable versions of this include a duet by Raquel Welch and Miss Piggy. Thought I'd seen all the episodes of The Muppet Show, but I think I missed that one. Apparently when Raquel Welch does it, she says W-O, and then Miss Piggy says P-I-G.
Of course she does.
A lot of stuff to research after this episode.
You know, one thing I didn't like about the Muppet Show is that everybody just let Miss Piggy be a bitch and they never called her on her shit.
Yeah, she was a little insufferable. She got away with murder on that show.
Tell me about it. You ever see like maybe a few years ago they had a resurgence of the Muppet Show and it was a little more like adult?
Yeah,
I actually
didn't
thought
see
it was
but I
pretty
remember
good.
it, yeah.
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it took the episodes like a couple or a few episodes to get going, and then like season was actually pretty good, but it was definitely more adult oriented.
It was for the people that grew up on the Muppet Show, not necessarily for kids, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like like full on like
It wasn't raunchy.
raunchy with it, but I mean raunchier than you would have seen back when we were kids, and it was still like Jesus, can't they just like Miss Piggy became even worse. She was almost like she was like the abuser.
She's kind of like a psychopath, even in the original.
I mean, poor Kermit. I mean, he's just like it's like that reverse spousal abuse. It's like one of those where the woman is like is abusing the
Kermit.
guy.
Kermit, blink if you need help.
Poor bastard.
We'll send somebody. We'll make you safe, Kermit.
Bring him to a safe house, a safe lily pad.
Safe lily pad. All right. I'm a woman. What do you think?
Oh, Nady. I don't know. I was gonna make some kind of joke, but now I'm like rethinking it, so never mind. 3. Yeah, it was good. A little repetitive. It was you said it was a cover, right?
Yeah, it's a Lieber Stoller song, and
Yeah,
it's,
so
which is You know,
I think
those a lot of those songs have a very similar vibe to them.
yeah, I was going to say I think some of the covers on this are a little basic for my taste because they're following that formula that at this point we've all heard so
Mhm.
much that it's not like anything new. Although I like the way they're doing it, and for instance, I like when they stop after the choruses. There's that little like I mentioned before, dissonant part. It sounded like a guitar. Yeah, like is that a guitar, like
It
a
sounds like
guitar ringing
Mo
out
doing a
or
double stop on the bass,
yeah, well
like a
something like that.
intentionally discordant.
Yeah, and I mean whether it's part of the original or whether it's something they added, I mean I definitely think they're putting their own spin on things, which is cool. But yeah, that's about it.
I will give this a 3.5 just because I do like the groove of it quite a bit. And again, I'm kind of wishing that I could see them going like in Love for Sale, where they really go for it with the kind of funky breakdown and everything. I'm craving some more of that, you know. Um, and yeah, I'm just never usually a huge fan of samples, but I think they do a I'm not samples, but covers. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but but I think the way that they handled the covers on this album was really good.
Hmm.
But I would almost always rather hear more original material or a
Hmm.
shorter album. Not that this album's long in any way, but um, okay. Next is the last track on this album. Now you may never have heard this song before, but I guarantee you, if you're listening, you've heard parts of this song a bunch of times. This song actually has been sampled hundreds of times. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to whosampled.com. If you've ever checked that out, it's like a cool website. So if you like, you hear something in like a hip hop song, you go to that, you type it in, it'll tell you where, at what time of the songs, where all the samples come from. So you could hear the original tracks. Um, over 100 songs have been come out, including the drum beat from this song in them, including Beastie Boys, 3 Minute Rule off of Paul's Boutique, um, Fuck the Police by NWA, Scooby Snacks by Fun Loving Criminals. All of these like songs have used this, and that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. But you can go, I'll put that link in there in the show notes. You can check it out, but you might recognize the opening drum beat to this song when I play it. And like I said, you've heard bits and pieces of the song, whether you know it or not. So here's the track, Feel Good. And there it is.
See us in the back of a black limousine and we feel good. We can reach out and touch it like a real life dream and make you feel good. The sound of the beats like a big machine and makes you feel good. It sure sounds tough and it sure sounds mean and makes you feel good. Here we come to get you, and we're glad we met you, and we're gonna let you feel good, feel good.
Hope Les Binks is getting some checks from all of the samples being used for.
Oh, nice.
The band is really good. Girls, the boys have been looking. Showing up
I think she said the band is really cooking. I like that.
Tap your feet now. Really get the beat now.
hot guys and one cool chick. That little transition right there sounds very New Gillan Man.
Yeah.
Or should I say very Marlin? That's so Marlin.
Classic Marlin.
Of his sitcom, That's So Marlin.
Everybody loves Marlin. Very cool.
There you go. Feel good. That beginning drum lick, like I said, you've heard a million times.
Sure I have.
Maybe not even realized it. All right, Feel Good. How do you feel about Feel Good? Do you feel good about it?
I feel a 3 about it.
All right.
That is pretty much it. I mean, I'll be saying the same thing that I've said about most of the other songs, is it doesn't really take off where I want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they had some dynamics in there and sped it up a little bit, but it's kind of like, I thought that maybe after like the second drum, the breakdown where, you know, the drums really speed up and everything, that they maybe go into like some kind of fast paced jam a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, maybe get some soloing in there, but it just kind of went back into that kind of slow, soulful thing twice, which I thought was a little much, because they kind of repeated that like 2 times, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that yeah, again, just another track that I would rate as like good but not great.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, I'm thinking a 3 as well, and I think it's I think they were going for something different on this album, which was more, you know, quick, more shorter, more poppy songs
Mhm.
versus going for the longer tracks. But yeah, it's a good song. Again, I would have liked a little bit more. Foster's bass playing is incredible.
Oh yeah.
Would like to hear a lot more from Marlin. I think Les Binks is great on this whole album. Just really solid, especially on that song. He's really, um,
He let loose.
yeah, he's showing his chops a little bit, but it's kind of where I stand.
So yeah, I think the album as a whole um is, I mean, they obviously, we've already established they have some great musicians, but I don't know, I think that the amount of, how many covers were there? 3?
3, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there were 3 covers, and the original songs, while they were good, you know, kind of left at times something to be desired, I think. So I don't know if it was really, I mean, the production was pretty neat too, because the production was like, it wasn't completely dry. As we've
Mhm.
discussed, I kind of like that. I mean, I kind of
Drums were
like,
pretty dry, but not necessarily the rest of it.
yeah, like I think it had a specific production that it worked for it. Like you mentioned, it was one of those kind of cool 70s albums that wasn't one of the kind of typical go-tos. So you could tell it has that early to mid 70s production to it. Not Doesn't sound too expensive or over the top, but it doesn't sound really cheap either. It's just kind of in the middle.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I mean, I would dare to say that the songwriting wasn't really like 100% there. Like, or maybe it was. Maybe it was like, great songs, and I just wasn't my style. But I feel like, the songs left me wanting them going a little. And I don't mean like a lot of extended sections and stuff like that, but just maybe didn't pick up the way I wanted to, and maybe some production stuff too. I mean, I thought maybe the vocals, the female vocals, or the lead vocals rather, could have been, more upfront. Maybe produced a little more powerful, because the backups and the choruses were really kind of cool. They're really full sounding and stuff, and there were a lot of great guitar sounds. So there's some things here and there. Um, on average, I think like just a good 70s album.
Hmm. Yeah.
Some couple of standouts. I probably wouldn't play the whole thing back to back, but I mean, obviously there may be like two or three standouts on there that would go into a playlist for me.
Yeah, for my taste, the Love for Sale, if they had gone that whole direction with this album, it would have been like an absolute knockout. As it
That's kind of what
stands,
I
like you
thought.
said, it's a really good album. It's a lot of fun to listen to. Um, but I was just craving more of that Love for Sale of what they did with the breakdowns and stuff. But again, I don't think that's where they're going for. I think the songwriting on this album, I think, is strong. I think it's maybe the arrangements could have been a little bit more fleshed out, but it seems like they were really going for, it was a different time too, and they were going for more of those singles.
Yeah.
Um, and that's of course why that's going to keep the songs a little bit on the shorter side.
Yeah.
Would have loved to hear more. As great as the bass and guitar playing is, all the playing was great, but would have loved to hear more Marlin solos.
Yeah, a little more flexing.
Yeah. So.
So for that album, or for this album rather, um, we both rated it about the same.
Hmm.
Yours was a little higher. I was a 3.0. We were 3.4. Um, Combined 6.7.
You were up at 3.30 and I was at 3.40.
Right. What did I say?
I think you said 3.0.
Oh, sorry. 3.3. You're 3.4. Sorry. Um, so that puts it a little bit higher than Captain Beyond, Sufficiently Breathless, and a little bit lower than John Lord Windows. That's where it falls in between right now.
There you go.
And really, over our like overall catalog so far, one of the lower ranked combined albums that we've had. Like, it doesn't fall in like the middle or the top. It falls actually on the lower side,
Hmm.
which makes sense.
Yeah, but it's also
Based on what we
it's also
said.
a self-selecting group of albums that we have wanted to do on this show. So
True, but I mean, we're
yeah.
talking about like inside of this, in this vacuum that we've created. This is where it falls, and I say now, like thus far, because 2 years from now, when we have rated like many more albums, and God willing, the rest of the Deep Purple catalog,
Someday.
the Deep Purple proper, who knows? Who knows where some of this stuff will fall,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, you stick like a, I mean, and how fair is the list, anyways? We always talk about that. Like, if you just like randomly like threw a Dean Martin album in there, where the hell would it fall? You don't know.
Well, it depends. Like if you threw a U2 album in here, it'd probably fall pretty low for me. And
It'd be
probably you,
lower than episode 6.
probably yeah, probably you as well. But if you threw it in there for someone else, it would be the top album by a long shot.
Right.
But yeah, these are just obviously the albums that we have chosen to review so far. So being on this list at all means we are interested and liking it quite a bit. And also the margins between some of these albums get really, really tight when you're talking about, oh, it edged out this album by like 0.02 or whatever.
Well, I still think it was fun. One thing that
Yeah.
I was thinking of when listening to this is just like, look at all the list of these albums, right? Is like a bunch of these are like just take into account all the albums that we listened to that we've heard before,
Mhm.
and then the bunch of them that I probably haven't heard all the way through or haven't heard for a really long time or never heard at all. It's kind of cool that I can look at that list of albums and be like, wow, that's all the music that I've been exposing myself to, like not even counting what I listened to during my off time during not recording the show. And it's kind of cool to just be like, all right, this is all the stuff that's like that's been in my brain, and it's like, and it's cool. Like this is a new album. I hadn't heard it before
Mhm.
for me. So it's, and we're talking about and learning and kind of critiquing and everything and forming opinions about a lot of these musicians where like some of them I haven't really thought about or maybe heard of. Like obviously everybody on here, with the exception of the vocalist, I've heard of before.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think that's just for me, for us, I would say like expanding our knowledge and our kind of musical catalog. I think that it's in value. It's important and valuable for that, and I think it would be the same for listeners too.
Yeah.
Like anybody that's interested in this stuff, like we are, is like hearing this stuff for the first time. It's like, oh wow, this is a whole new thing that I'm hearing, and maybe they want to go seek out other stuff that some of these musicians have been on, and that's how we got down the rabbit hole. And yeah, I just think it's kind of a really cool thing. It kind of crossed my mind in the middle of listening to this.
Yeah. If you look at any of the albums on this list at all, I mean, there's not many that there's a few at the very bottom, but for the most part, any of these albums I'd be happy to listen to almost any time.
Mhm.
All right. Well, there you have it. That is Fancy Wild Thing. And they have, a follow-up album to this, which only got 7 songs on it. So, and I'm not as familiar with that one. So I've heard it once or twice, but I'd be interested to see how that stacks up against this one day when we get to it. So, all right. Well, until next week, my friend, I will see you later.
Adios, muchacho.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple Podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also give us a rating on iTunes to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.